Just ask you about Osiris Torrance again. Being that going from a group of 5 to a power 5, did you look at his Louisiana tape a lot to see how he transitioned to Florida?
Yeah, definitely watched his last season there, and then and see what the differences were, if there were any. I mean, honestly, his tape was pretty consistent at Louisiana Lafayette, and you didn't see like a drop in his level of play even going to Florida. That's what gives you confidence. Definitely if he'd have stayed there the whole time, you're going, okay, this is going to be a bigger jump. I still trust it or not, but I think it was an easier evaluation seeing him play against, Jalen Carter and some of those guys at Georgia and obviously some of the other schools that they face in the SEC.
Generally speaking, like over the years, how beneficial do you find these rookie mini camps in terms of players making transition and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean it's a hard one because these guys haven't been playing football. A lot of them, some of them were not in all-star games. Some of them weren't in playoffs. Some of their seasons ended a long time ago, and so you try and warn them the best you can. Get in shape, but we already had a few guys that are cramping, and they're going to get in there and get some treatment. So it's hard, and the other part of it is you got a quite a wide ranging skill set. You got guys trying out versus first round pick sometimes, and at different positions. So it's a harder evaluation for sure. I was just talking to Mike Shula about when they drafted Saquon, and he was talking about watching Saquon go against some of the guys he went against, and they were just doing one-on-ones, and he's like, he was cooking dudes, But it's a different level. It's really you're just trying to, the main thing, teach them some things and see what they can learn, process, all that stuff, especially guys that are not some of the tryout guys. We do have serious interest. We, every year we signed, I think last year, Jamarcus Ingram and Kingsley, from this camp. So we've signed some guys in the past. We're definitely evaluating some of these other guys, and part of that is how are they mentally, fitting? Is this going to be a big adjustment, or are they picking it up pretty quick?
What are your impressions on Dalton Kincaid today?
I thought he did a good job. Same thing. It's been a while for him because he had the back deal, which eliminated a lot of his spring work. But I thought he did a good job. Caught the ball easy, moved well. Again, you can't simulate this. He can work out. He can run on the track. He can run 40s. He can do everything. But simulating what he's doing today, first time out, like anything, there's some things that are rusty, and it's the first time he's applying things he's been taught, just in a couple of days here of what he's got to apply, on the grass. So, overall, good job. He'll be a sponge, and it'll look easier and easier for him once he gets in with the vets starting next week.
What's the first day? Shane Ray.
I'm sorry,
what's the path that led you to Shane Ray? He's a first-round pick from 8 years ago. I know he's in the CFL, but how do you get to a guy like that here?
Yeah, well, we're always looking at guys, and sometimes there's guys in his case that would just bring out. You guys see we worked out a player or whatever. This time of year, if you're, we didn't hit on any DNs after the draft as far as guys to sign, and so that's why we were excited to get the kid Cameron Klein last week that we claimed from Indy, and then we probably at some point may look to add a D end between now and start a camp. And so we're just, instead of doing a workout, here's a guy out there, let's bring him in here for a couple days. Again, test his knowledge, test his skill set, see where he's at. And, we call it kicking the tires.
What was intriguing about DJ Dale to sign him as an undrafted kid?
Yeah, he's just a steady Eddie type player there, strong against the run, shows some flashes of some rush. I would say he's more of a run player and just another body. When you ask the people at Alabama, like this was one of the leaders of the D-line room, there are just a lot of positives from personality, football character, all those things that we think will help him as, be a pro here.
Brandon, when the schedule comes out, what's the first thing you look for?
Week 1 is always who that is. I look at our, when do we play our division teams? I did look to see when we played the Dolphins this year to see if we had to go in the scorching heat or not, and I was excited to see that was a little bit later in the year. And then the bye week. Yeah, that's probably the main things that immediately jump out.
Can I ask you about that too? Because it's been since 2015 since we've covered a international game. Back then there was a bye that you just had your bye after it. Now you have a choice to decline that, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like a week 13 bye, given the stretch run, and it seems like it worked out. That decision worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I think, Adam, we knew talking to them when we were going to have a London game that it was going to be earlier in the year. If the London game was, mid-season or later, we probably would take it there. But as being week 5, we just, we decided, hey, if you can give us a home game on one side of it, which we got a home on both, we would rather do that and get that break later in the season. The last couple of years, we've had those Thanksgiving games, so we've tried to work what we call a mini bye around that. But this year, getting the bye late, we like that setup.
Dave, is there anything or anybody that stood out to you out there, seeing them run around with each other the first time?
Yeah, I mean, nothing in particular. It's just more watching the guys move. Some guys are moving a little easier than others, different skill sets too. So I don't want to call out one player. It's one day, first time out. Tomorrow, you look for, all right, who was consistently doing it right versus who had a good day today, not a good day tomorrow, or vice versa.
I talked to you since the Puna Ford signing. Just where do you see him in the defensive line, and why did you end up signing him?
Yeah, Puna was a guy that we stayed very interested in, through the free agent process, but couldn't get them to agree to my deal that we were working with some others on, and so we just stayed in contact. And once we didn't get one from the draft, we stayed connected and said, all right, let's talk, next week. And I know he had some interest, and according to the agent, I believe he turned down a little bit more money to come here. So like that. And ultimately, he's a guy he's a pro. He's started a lot of games. He's a really good run player. I think he can help in the rush. At a minimum, he's pushing that pocket to keep that quarterback from stepping up. He's not an elusive guy in there, but he's stout, plays good. He helps, your whole group with the rush is in there. Again, he helps you get to third down by stopping that run.
With you about post-draft you had said that signing someone to that defensive tackle, or drafting or whatever,
yeah.
There's still no one under contract past this, the season. Is that something that you feel like you need to address, before the season? How much of an urgency is that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I would like to not end the season, by the end of the season and be at 0. That would be my hope. But it would have to make sense, if it's somebody that's here now, it would have to make sense to do an extension, with any of those guys. So we'll see. You know me well. We've found a way to sometimes do an extension or two, in training camp. So, maybe we look at it at that point, see where the guys are at, who's all in, who's looking good, and if there's a chance to get one extended, we would look to do that.
Brandon, saw Rob Boris working with Kincaid a little bit individually. How much can this time help when the vets aren't here, that they can work a little more closely together?
Yeah, I think right now it's you're hoping to get that transition. He's not going to be up to speed with the playbook and some of the concepts that we use. We kind of evaluated his skill set. We saw how Utah used him. We'll use him in some of the same ways, but some of our route concepts, you're kind of trying that out, experimenting with him a little bit, what he can do well, what he can't. So just trying to really get him up to speed so that, next week's still phase 2, but the following week we start these OTAs. And so when he's out there with Josh and the other quarterbacks, that hopefully that's a little more natural, by that point.
Shorter was the #1 high school recruit at wide receiver coming out of high school. I mean, not too many guys can say that. So, I mean, he's been an impressive athlete for a long time. Do you feel like maybe there's a little bit more there to unlock than what maybe he showed at times in college?
Yeah, I think again, you never know their journeys. I was talking to Sal about this a while ago. These are not robots, and we weren't talking about him, but just players. These are not robots. life happens to people for various reasons, and sometimes people hit obstacles or whatever. But we feel that his best football, could and should be ahead of him if he puts in the work. We really liked him. We brought him in for the 30 visit. Really felt like this was our kind of DNA, being around him a little bit more, and that he acknowledged that there's more in his game. And so hopefully working with Coach Henry and Dorsey and all those guys, that we can grow him. But it also gives us some confidence. The guy's been a really good fourth down player in college. And a lot of times that's how guys, they get that jersey on game day, and so they've got to know the offense or they got to know the defense. And ultimately at some point they're going to be in the game, and Josh Allen's going to have to throw to him. So a lot's on him. We believe in him. You can see with his, he's a pretty looking dude, up on him. You like the build. And so we just got to work with him, but we like his DNA and think there's some good upside, Jay.
And when the veterans come to town in a couple of weeks for one of these practices, what's your initial plan with Osiris in terms of left versus right? Where do you want to begin him?
We'll move. We don't usually just put him in one, so I would say definitely the two guards and just let him move around. And it's going to be a competition, between now and when we start the season. At guard, we got some guys, again, between him, Bates, we signed McGovern, David Edwards played a lot, Ike Bucker's back. I mean, we like our depth there, and we've made no promises to anybody. It's going to be the best man wins, and it's the same thing at the corner position last year. We threw several bodies at it. We brought Dane back. We brought Christian Benford in. We drafted Kyer. We don't care how we got you, and we're just going to line them up, and best man wins.
Speaking of best man win, how high are you on Tyrell Shavers?
Yeah, I mean, we like he's got a skill set, and that's why we signed him after the draft. And so ultimately, there's always a lot of different styles of receivers now. Again, I've talked about with 7-on-7s. There's so many different ones. You got inside out and outside to in. So he's just another guy who had some success in college. I was not able to spend much time in the pre-draft process around him, and so we think his skill set, gives him a chance at least to compete. And then, those guys, if they don't make it, you hope it's a guy that you say, man, I want this guy on my practice squad.
Last one.
What have you learned about Dalton? I know you just said in a couple of days, right? So it's very early on in the process. But what have you learned just having him in the building, seeing him out on the practice field, that kind of goes with the scouting that you did, everything that you did leading up to the draft, and then to get him to a position to be ready to have an impact once the season starts?
Yeah, the thing I've noticed about him, being around him a little bit more from bringing him in, is he's steady Eddie. Like, he catches the ball. I don't know if I ever saw him give some fist pump, but if he dropped the ball, like he did one on a little end breaker, hit him. He didn't drop that. You don't see him pouting or getting in his hand. Goes right back out there. The next ball's over the middle, plucks it. I like that. He's just next play, and that's kind of when you talk to him. Yeah, cool. You almost are you ready? Are you fired up? He's just like this, but I think that's part of what makes him a good player. And so that's the early return that I've got on him. He's just soaking it in, coming in, working just like he's an undrafted kid, mouth shut, head down, eyes up. That's what I see.